Well, hello and welcome to the Profit Express. I'm Tim Healy, and I'm inviting you to join me each and every Wednesday so together we can win the battle for business. That's right, we do it here and only here on the Profit Express. So thanks for being on board and sharing some of your time with me today. Now, as you are well aware, one of the biggest investments we make early on in life is the degree we're going to pursue for the career we're hoping to have into the future. And we've all heard it. We want to get a career that, is in line with our passion, where we can make nice money, support ourselves, have a nice lifestyle, support our future family. So there's a lot on the line with that one decision. What degree should I get for what career? I don't know. But think about this. What if you get it wrong? And it's a huge investment. You know it and I know it. And I'm asking that question for all you parents listening, because I'm actually a parent myself with a 16-year-old son, Magnus, who is right in this process right now of trying to determine what is the right degree, and he's vacillating between two different careers as we speak. Whew, there's a lot on the line. My wife and I are frantic. Magnus is frantic. And there is that question, what if you get it wrong? Are you just, taking on a sea of debt? I mean, currently in 2025, the national college debt is $1.7 trillion. The average person with student loans is in debt for $43,000. Those are not good statistics. So if you are a parent with a kid right in that realm, a 16 to 20-year-old, today's guest may very well be your next best friend. She's Hannah Maruyama, and she is the founder of Degree Free, along with her husband, Ryan. And their goal, their mission is to help you from making that costly mistake of pursuing the wrong degree or possibly a career that's not right for you. And not only the wrong degree, but what about an unnecessary degree? Because in doing my research, and I've been following Hannah's content online, specifically on Instagram. She's got great content, by the way. There's I think it's about 8% of the jobs out there actually legally require a degree. You heard that right. Only 8%. So that's 92%. You don't even need a degree. Oh, wow. So Hannah's the guest today. If you're a parent with a kid approaching the college age as I am, you're going to want to stay tuned and listen and be a part of the conversation. Degree Free, the channel's on TikTok. Amazing followers. She's got 500,000 followers, over 150 million views. Hannah and her husband, Ryan, again, they host the Degree Free podcast, is one of the top career podcasts out there. And interestingly, on their podcast, of course, they talk to degree-free people who work at companies like Meta, Dell, Twitch, Nike, Microsoft, et cetera. So it's a pleasure to have on board the Profit Express, Hannah from Degree Free. Hannah, how are you today?
Tim, I have been looking forward to this conversation quite a bit. I'm very excited to be here and to be able to talk to you about this.
Well, thank you. Listen, as I said, I'm selfishly having you on because I need to pick your brain because, as I said in the intro, my wife and I carry our son, Magnus. He's 16. He's in the thick of the process. We went on a college tour, an open house, I think a couple of weeks ago. So I came across your content. Maybe it was probably a few months ago.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
And here we are. So welcome aboard. So before we get into all the kind of scary, alarming statistics, tell us the story of how you started Degree Free. What got you here?
Sure. So a lot of my experience in Degree Free was designing what I believe that the market needed to have as far as helping parents and their families make really informed decisions as their young adults are transitioning into adulthood. And it's something that I wish had been there when I was this age. And the reason is because my parents, my dad was in the military, and then my mom was a nurse because we moved around so much. My mom worked periodically, but also homeschooled my siblings and I. But it was always always a foregone conclusion. I ended up going to a public high school. It was a foregone conclusion that we would go to college, but there was no discussion about why or the reason. It was just what you did after high school. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason this matters so much is because my family did not have the money for all of my siblings and I to go to college. I had to pay my own way. And I got one of the rebuttals you'll see a lot in my content is people just say, oh, she just says this because she couldn't get into college. It's really easy to get into college if you have money. They'll take anybody's money. It's a business. I did get into college. I was 16 years old when I was enrolled at a local university. I ended up writing for the paper there. And I actually left not necessarily because of the money, but because I was just bored out of my mind. I was bored out of my mind and I couldn't see the application in my larger life. And I left. I was going to be a journalism communications major.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there really was no requirement for me to do that in order to do any of the things that would lead me to any sort of career path in journalism, communications, writing, etc. Later in my life, I had multiple different careers. I was able to explore a lot, experience a lot. I actually owned a very successful tattoo shop, a very successful paramedical tattoo studio before COVID. And then COVID ended up shutting everything down. A lot of people had to change careers at that point. I had a little bit of background in business and a little bit of background in tourism sales. That was all I had. And at that point, I retooled into tech because I could see that my needs were not being met by the career that I was in, and I needed to change that. So
Wait,
using
hold on. I got it.
Yeah.
I got to interrupt. I know you were rolling. I'm sorry because I know
No,
the
go for it.
listeners
Go
want to
for
know
it.
this. So
Go for it.
journalism, and then you had a tattoo shop.
I did. Yes.
You did.
Yeah, a paramedical tattoo shop.
Were you paramedical? Are you a tattoo artist, or were you a tattoo artist?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was a licensed tattoo artist, but a different type of tattoo than most people would think. This one had more medical applications. So it's covering up vitiligo, surgical scars, things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, I couldn't let that go. I'm like, tattoo. Okay, very good. All right.
Yeah.
So you go from there. So COVID happens, and then you're in tech. Take us from there.
So once I started in tech, my transition into tech happened, and this was very stark, and this is really where it all changed for me. I'd always suspected that degrees were not actually required. I've always been a person that doesn't like to believe when someone tells me that I can't do something, that it has to be that way, and I like to stress test and see for myself if that's true. And then if it is, then I take that information and move on. And so my experience was that I retooled into tech. I spent $362 on a technical certification. I applied for a job that said it required an advanced computer science degree. I was hired for that job approximately 45 days after I started studying for it. I'm not a stellar student. I had no background in tech. I was very strategic about the in-demand skills, and then strategic in the education that I picked, strategic in how I studied for it. And then it took me 45 days to do this. And then I was able to replicate those results with friends and family. And I realized I had found something. About a year into that tech job, I received an offer to work at a company that was AI and machine learning enterprise level software. And so I did that for years. Until a couple of years ago when we started doing the launch program, which is how we work with young adults in degree free. But my background now, my most recent work background, is actually in AI and machine learning. So I have a lot of insider knowledge about ATS, a lot about how employers are actually behaving in terms of how they're acquiring talent, and then how they're distributing it internally. And so I just saw something coming down the pipeline that a lot of people didn't have access to see. So a lot of the AI FUD and doom I don't buy into. I'm actually an AI optimist, but I think that parents, colleges specifically, are under-equipped, and that none of the kids currently going into college have 4 years to burn, and they definitely don't have $108,000, which is the NCES estimate for the average cost.
The average 4-year degree is 108,000.
108,000. The kicker here is that most kids don't graduate in 4 years. They take 5.5, at which point the cost increases to 156,000. Total all-in tuition, lost wages, and interest is well over $500,000.
The way I always looked at college, and I want to preface this: my wife works at a university, so I'll just say that.
University employees are the harshest critics of universities.
I'm sure they very
Often.
well could be. And see, what I thought, I went to school for marketing. I'm like, why am I going to school and taking social science courses? I don't need sociology. To me, and this is how, I don't want to get too far off it, but it's like a 4-year degree should be a 2-year degree. All right? I don't need
I
to
agree.
be well-rounded. I don't need literature. And I don't want to seem arrogant or ignorant, but I don't. I got to get in there. I got to get a degree, get out and make money.
Tim, so let me tell you the class that got me. And I was just on the phone with some parents the other day that enrolled their son in the launch program. And it's the same class that got him too. It was art history. Couldn't do it. Couldn't hack it. I was like, I can't sit here and pay you to tell me this information. This has no application going forward. Also, it's not the type of art history I want to study. I actually am a trained painter. I grew up taking art lessons. I've sold paintings, but I didn't want to learn about art history and I couldn't see paying for it. And they recently also had I'm about to start laughing just telling you about this, but they had a mastermind. They had all of these brilliant thinkers in the university system come together and go, how can we fix the student loans? How can we fix the student loan crisis? How can we do this? These high performers, these top performers, and their bright idea. Do you want to guess what their bright idea was? Do you want to guess what it was?
Oh, I would have no idea.
3-year degree. That was the bright idea. Same price, 3 years.
Oh, same price.
Same price, 3 years. That was that's their fix.
So you're getting less for more money. You are.
But that's not even the point. The point is that currently a 4-year degree takes 5.5 years. So their bright idea is a 3-year degree that takes 4.5 years. How is that going to fix anything? That was their big bright idea.
The only way you fix it. Yeah, the fix is cut the 4-year degree in half and charge in 2 years and charge half, and that's a fix. That's a potential fix.
The other fix from our end, from the parent and sane party end, is don't buy it unless you need it. And, if you ever need to, you can.
And that's really what I want to get to today, because I know it's a big part of your mission and your message, because it's not just, is it the wrong degree, but even if it's necessary. So, I mean, and I know we're going to explore that, but let me just throw out a tough one for you right off the bat.
Do it.
Do you think college is a waste of time and money in general?
Ooh, I just did this. I just did a video on this about whether or not it's worth it. It's worth it in 2 use cases only, in my opinion. The first one is if you're a young adult, you have a trust fund set aside, and the only place for you to learn the thing that you want to learn is quite literally behind the physical paywall of a college. The second is also very narrow. The second, where I could see it being worth it, is lower middle class kid, one name school, in a business class for tech or business, with a professor who is an adjunct who can make an introduction for them to get into a specific entry-level job. Those are the only 2 use cases I see. They're very small.
So you just eliminated about 90% of the college population.
Probably 98, but
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was being generous. Okay. It's
probably 98. But there's no reason. So the reason is to remove the emotion from it. It's not an emotional purchase. And that's why so much, and I'm sure that you feel this. I'm sure you and your wife feel this too. A lot of parents do. But the social pressure is unbelievable. And that's really what should make everybody stop and question why we pressure 17 and 18-year-old children to take out what is, for many of them now, the most expensive thing they'll ever buy at this age. When they do not understand the concept of money, they've never done work. They don't understand what they're actually going to do in their life because they have no work experience. Right. And we tell them to do this. It's crazy if you think about it. It's wild that we let anybody take out loans or co-sign loans if they're under 25 years old. I just don't think it's ethical as a society. Their brains aren't fully formed. They shouldn't be signing loans at this age.
Right.
We don't give business loans to people this age.
And they're loans that can't be forgiven, by the way, also.
And
that's
they're bankruptcy exempt. They'll follow you to the ends of the earth. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
The whole, just on the debt alone, we could have a separate show just on that. But okay. So for the parents listening, for the Healy's, right, listening, you have, at least I have to be transparent, they're in the process of figuring out what the degree could be, for what career. Okay. Where do they start? You know, it's an arduous process. It's an overwhelming process. It's an emotional process. So let's just go back to the beginning. Where should parents and the students start?
My favorite question. So, the best place to start is not from passion. It's not from interest. It's not from strengths. All of these things are attached to a 17 and 18-year-old child because they can go on. We train 18-year-olds every day to become surgeons. They are 17 and 18 years old. They're blank slates. They can learn quite literally anything. So what you need to do as a parent is have 4 very simple conversations with them. I recommend spacing these out, not having them in your house and not having them around other kids because it's difficult to focus. But in a very low stakes environment, I find a drive is actually a really good use for this. Like go get a drink or ice cream and then just drive and talk. Where do you want to live and build your life? Do you want to stay in this town? Is there a place that you guys moved from a few years ago that they want to go back to? Is there a place they've always dreamed of living? Where do they want to live and build their life? Second, what kind of income do they need to make in order to live the way that they want? Kids will have very wide definitions of what they need to earn to live the way that they want. That's something that I found. We've worked with kids in the launch program. Our strategists will work with kids that are like, you know what, I'd be happy with 50 a year. Other kids come in and they go, I want to make a base of 210. That's what I want at least. Later in my career, I want to make, I want to take home 400, $500,000 a year. How can I do that? And there's no right or wrong to these things. These things have no moral value attached. What do they need to bring about in their life and what income do they need to do that? The third is schedule. This one's really important for people, for young adults who are very tied to how they work and get tired out easily, have medical needs, have other restrictions. This is a really important one. But also schedule dictates a lot of your happiness with your life as well. When you work matters a lot. Night shifts can be really good for some people, really terrible for other people. It just depends on how they are. But then, even 4-day work weeks is another example of schedule, right? A 4-day work week, you can build a business, you can do a lot of living in 4 days. For young women who want to eventually be able to have more flexible work because they also would like to be able to be home with their own children. This comes a lot in the launch program and no one else talks about this, but this is a really big thing. Having work that's flexible and able to be stacked as a career, something that's really useful. And you can build a skill set that allows you to do that. So that's schedule. And then the fourth is work environment. This one is can be based on like physical limitation. If somebody, for instance, we had a young man with cerebral palsy, so he couldn't reach certain, he physically can't do certain things. So his work environment matters a little bit more, right? People that are deaf, hard of hearing, things like that. People that we've had some young adults with autism in the program before that they just can't, the loud noises are just a little much for them. And so they need work environments and that's more important than their other needs. But this could also be like, I can't sit behind a desk. I just can't do it. I want to go out and do my work, like a real estate appraiser or a marine surveyor or something like that. They want to go out and do their work. They don't want to sit in an office, or they want a hybrid. They want to go in and see people sometimes, but they want to be able to do their projects off on their own. And then figure out which of these 4 factors, schedule, income, work environment, location, which one is the priority, because they're not in order. You have to order them. But once you order them, basically what you have now is a description for the career that you're hunting for, how much it makes, what work environment it has, where it is available, and then what sort of schedule it has. Super simple, right? It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but just a little bit different.
So it's very interesting because you're approaching this, from what I'm hearing, very objectively. If I'm going to pursue this degree, right, and you know this, the Profit Express, we talk about this all the time. Decisions are made emotionally. And I think you even spoke about it a little earlier that, parents like, oh, I'm sending, my kid to Cornell, or I'm dead, blah, 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 blah. There's also that ego involved too. And so much emotion with this process from the parent's perspective and from the kid's perspective. And even that 4-step process.
Parents. I don't even really talk to them. If they're worried about status, that's almost like a fifth thing that if you want to buy for status, that's
Right.
fine, and no one should try to persuade those people not to do that. If that's the only thing that's going to make them happy with the purchase they make for their child, go for it. Honestly, unfortunately, we'll probably see you when your kid's 19 and 20 years old in the program because you had no goal.
Right.
But there's the people that come in who have really amazing results and go into this objectively. And the next part of the process is once you figure out those four, you start looking by passion and interest and strength after. So it's the
Right.
next step. There's four steps, but the first step is what are their needs? And the second step is interest, passion, strengths, things that they want, like things that they want to learn and are interested in. So we had a young adult who he was 19 up in Massachusetts, and he ended up going through this whole process. His parents came in very objective. I really admired the way they were like, I really want him to be content with the job that he has. I want him to like it. And his work environment to him was super important, super important. Most kids don't come in with that goal, but he came in with that goal, and he ended up in a bench jeweler apprenticeship because that was what fit
Really?
his needs. Yeah. Like super happy, super thrilled. Like his backup too, as random as this sounds, was a garage door installer because he realized it could lead him into business ownership down the line. And so that's something that he was also looking into on the side. But like content and happy, The flip side of that is other kids that get into they want to go into, we had a young man who was working in epoxy flooring, and he's like, this is not making me what I want to make. I want to get into tech sales. And I was like, okay, let's run you through the gauntlet. And so we put him through the launch program, and he did end up with a he wanted to go into fleet management tech sales. And it only took him a couple months. He had to learn some really basic skills. He had to learn some Python, some Excel stuff, but he ended up getting recruited. 19 years old. He got recruited. This is going to sound like I made this story up. He got recruited into an AI fleet management for private charter planes, and then they assigned him an intern in month 2 who had a master's degree. I'm not making this up.
Well, wait,
it sounds made up.
They assigned him an intern who had a master's degree?
Right. Yeah. That was in an MBA program. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds made up. It sounds like I'm making it up. I'm dead serious. This happened. I remember emailing him too. And I said, he emailed me that this happened. And I just said, no one is going to believe this if I tell this story.
Right. Right. No, it's hard. It's hard to believe. Right. And what a kick in the pants to the kid with the master's degree. But we won't go there. But it's so amazing. None of this existed when I was a kid. You're just like, okay, I marketing business. All right, let me go. But it just seems like really such the right approach, because you have to approach it like it's a business decision, because it really is. If you're willing to saddle yourself with X tens of thousands or $100,000 plus of debt, you really want to make sure that, what's the potential ROI here? And, I think a word that gets, and you've mentioned it already, but I think a word that gets bandied around too much, and I think it can confuse kids, is this follow your passion crap. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is such a hard one because I think that it's difficult for people to separate. I think that they should do that, but I think they have to make sure their basic needs are met. That's the thing. That's the problem, is that our whole, and honestly, I think that the whole reason that it's like this is to sell degrees. Because follow your passion, and who falls victim to this the most is the young ladies. They are told, and I talk about this a lot. I feel very strongly about this because it happens all the time. I saw it happen to me. It happened to my friends. It happened to my siblings. I've seen this happen and seen this play out in real time. But you like to help people. That's your passion. Here are 3 jobs that you can pick from. All of them require master's degrees because they do legally require degrees. 2 of the 3 will not make the money back ever. They will be essentially enslaved in their job to a job that is very emotionally draining, that takes all of their time, all of their energy, and they will not be able to get out of it because of the amount of debt that they're in. And they're making this decision uninformed at 17 and 18 years old because of this whole follow your passion. Like, your passion is to help people. Like, at the end of the day, most people's passion is to help people. That's how people are. Those are the things that people want to do.
That's how we're wired. Yeah.
Make sure. Yeah, you have to make sure you can feed yourself first. And so this idea that we can just dismiss that and then just buy $100,000 pieces of paper, which people can only afford one of these days. You can't afford multiple of these shots in the dark. Like you can put a down payment on a house for your kid, you can buy them a small business, or you can buy them a piece of paper with a 41% of them aren't going to graduate at all. So that's not going to help. And then of that, only 25% of them are going to work in their field of study. So it's not like it's a guarantee of any kind. And then more than that is just because you get a job with a degree that isn't your field of study doesn't mean you like that job or that it meets your needs. And this is the thing that's so like, and the barest amount of strategy at the beginning of this decision would make all the difference. And that's what we really care about is like, I just want people to think about this strategically. Even if they're going to make an emotional decision and you are going to choose, your child is going to choose a job that is in their passion and they're going to trade off other things, help them to make that fully informed so that their expectations are not going to be tanked. And that's going to make them so much happier, even if they do end up in a job that's lower paying, a job with less career advancement, a job that doesn't meet all of their needs, but they choose that as fully informed as you can make them at their age. That would change everything.
So let me ask you, you part of your conversations, when people go to Degree Free and they enlist you for your services, you're speaking to parents, but then you're also speaking to 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. What's that experience like, taking them through those exercises?
No one asks
with
me
those
that.
questions and the four characteristics.
You know what's so cool about this, Tim, is that one of the things, I might cry talking about this. So I feel, and Ryan feels very strongly too, this sense of stewardship over these young adults, because they are the next generation. They're coming up behind us. And what we're trying to do is help them build their life in a very strategic way so they can get the things that they want. It doesn't matter what they want, but help them figure out what they're able, how they're able to build the life that they actually want to live and then execute it, which is a hugely powerful thing. It's a concept called scaffolding, where you basically help them figure out what it is they need to do, and then you leave them up on the scaffold to build. That's what we're doing. And talking to them is so cool and so inspiring, because Gen Z gets a lot of flack for being lazy, for being uninterested. But actually, I think that they have inherited, and I'm not one of those, like, I'm not one of those let's do generational blame things, but they work often a lot of jobs. They're overemployed, actually. The ones that have jobs are more employed than any generation prior. A lot of them have 3 jobs. They work, they want to build things, they want to have a future. And you know what the thing is at the core of it too? A lot of them, because one of the things that we ask about location, right? So we do the Degree Free 4 in the launch program, and a lot of them want to stay near their families and they want to have a home and family. And that's super cool to me and very inspiring, because a lot of the media around Gen Z like paints them not that way. And I found that to be untrue. And my sample size is all over the country. That is one thing that I like to say this with. There's not a lot of people in our position that are able to read these kind of responses from kids in Arizona, Alaska, Maine, down in Pensacola, Florida, in New Mexico, in California, in Texas, in Indiana, like they're all over the country. They're Montana, South Dakota. Like we've had kids in almost every single state and multiple kids in almost every single state. And so our data on this, like overwhelmingly, they want a future. They want to stay near family. They really value that. And they want to have families of their own.
I mean,
and more dogs than cats.
Yeah. Well, are you a dog person or a cat person?
I'm a dog person. But a lot of them prefer dogs. If it was an imaginary animal, a lot of them prefer monkeys. Don't know what that is, but
okay. Here we are on the Profit Express talking about imaginary animals. Monkeys, kind of a pet monkey. You think monkey would be a cool pet, but they scare the hell out of me, monkeys. They could go nuts in a second.
They're just a little too much like people, I think, is what it is. They freak me out too.
Yeah. They freak me out. Yeah. So it's amazing that when you give them the structure of a conversation and the exercise, with those 4 key points that you talked about, what really insightful things you can get from these 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Which is just really tremendous. So I asked you, where should you start? Now let me ask you in this process, because I know that there are hundreds of thousands of kids and their parents all around the country who are making these mistakes right now. The mistakes that you're about to share with us. What are the 3 most common mistakes parents and their kids make in this process?
Ooh, the first one is picking college first. That happens a lot. I went to high school in Savannah, Georgia, and down there, the SEC is real big, and so people will go, "Oh, I'm going to Bama, I'm going to UGA, I'm going to whatever," and then, and this to me, looking back on this now, it's so insane. But they would pick the school, and then they would pick a major, and then they would try to loosely tie it to a career, which is just almost never going to work out. That's just, there's no strategy behind it. It's you're picking the store. It's what the analogy I think would be, it would be an accurate analogy is, I'm going to go to Target and I'm going to pick a random aisle, and then I'm just going to buy something for a lot of money, and I'm going to get home, and then I'm going to hope that I have the ingredients for the meal that I wanted to make. But instead you come home with a flat screen TV and you're still hungry. That's basically what people do. And to me, looking at it now, I'm like, this is so irrational. It's crazy. It's crazy. The second would be thinking that partial scholarships are going to help. That's a big one. The way that people get suckered into that, and there's a few different ways. This is a little deep in the funnel. People are probably not going to like this opinion, but this is what I see. AP classes, even dual enrollment. I did both of these things, by the way. So I'm also speaking from experience. All of these things, what they are designed to do is they are designed to pre-sell you and your child college, because because that couple credit hours is going to end up costing your family $108,000 that you didn't need to spend, or that you should have spent in a completely different way to get a better outcome. And because people don't think strategically about that, they just go, "Oh, well, he's going to lose his, 4 AP credits, or, oh, he's going to lose his couple of dual enrollment credits." Who cares?
Right.
Who cares?
Sure, yeah.
Do you want your child to come out of college at 23 years old with $156,000 of debt, a degree that is not going to get them a job, and they're going to now not buy a house and not have kids and push off all of these life things that happen, all because of those few AP credits that you got hung up on in high school? And it happens to people more than you'd think. Partial scholarships. I just saw a girl on Dave Ramsey the other day where she was saying she's one of 6 kids, and she wants to go to a college that tuition alone is $38,000 a year. And she said, "But I got a scholarship. The scholarship is $44,000 over 4 years." They gave her a discount on something she does not need to buy at all. And so that's a big one, is just checking your bias,
Hannah, what percentage, and today's guest, Hannah with Degree Free, and if you are a parent and your kid's about to go to college, she's going to be your next best friend. I can tell you that right now. What percentage of, maybe you've already said this, but I just want to make sure we touch on it. What percentage of people getting degrees, are wasting their time?
This is such a hard thing to calculate, and that's why probably no one has done it, because it's so hard to quantify.
Right.
But I believe the percentage of people who shouldn't be or should be.
Should not.
Easily 80% at least. I think it's probably closer to 90. I think it's probably closer to 90%. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think that
all right. So now you get parents listening. Wait, hold on. Let me jump in. So you hear parents like, okay, Hannah's saying, we have this conversation about college and how you're choosing it. But then they're saying, okay, so if my kid doesn't get a degree, what's the path to get the job?
Sure. So, and the one thing I wanted to say too before I answer that question is I think a lot of parents will hear that as me saying your kid's not smart enough to get into college or your kid is not qualified enough to get into college. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying your child does not have enough time to get into college and they're too smart to spend money on something that has no defined function. If your child is determined more than anything else in their life, they have to be XYZ job title. They have to be a cardiac surgeon at Johns Hopkins. That is the only thing that's going to satisfy their internal desires in their life. Then they have to go.
Sure.
And don't let anything stop them. That's fine. Like I said, there's no emotion to this. This is something that's very strategic about, and it has to be strategic because of the cost. And so I'm so sorry. What was your follow-up question? I just want to make sure I said that because I just want to make sure I clarified how that sounded.
No, the path. So if you don't have the degree, what's the path to the profession, the career? Yeah.
Yeah. This is a lot easier than people think it is. So, and it's because this is the lost art of the entry-level job is what I'm going to call it, because this is how people used to get work. I don't know why. Everything's just back to the future. Stuff is just going back to the way it was. Like there's a lot of things in our society, especially as AI increases in speed, that are just going back to the future. So if you look at, there's also a rise in homeschooling and micro schools, which is like, we're going back to the one-room schoolhouse. That's how we used to do school. That's how we used to do it. And so I think that education, like I don't want to call college higher education because I don't believe it is. But the way in is for parents to do that degree before I talked about, then look for jobs that actually fit their child's needs, and then help their child pick by interest. Which one's the most interesting? Which one do they think is the coolest? And then figure out what skills they need to learn. And I'm not oversimplifying this, but if I had I live and die by my yellow legal pads, but there we go. I knew I had one. So you're going to take a yellow legal pad or an Excel spreadsheet, depending on how your household runs. And you are going to go look up 10 of those job titles, the ones that your child wants to do. And you are going to line by line list every single skill that shows up in the job description. The only thing you are not going to care about is years of experience and degrees. Anything from 0 to 5 years of experience is an entry-level job. They will take your kid. Why? Because it's attitude versus aptitude. They're hiring for attitude, 0 to 5 years out of anything. 0 to 5 years out of high school, attitude. Your kid needs the right attitude. That's it. That's all. And so once you do that, you got all the skills, and then you start going down the line and seeing where there's overlap in the skill sets. And you can do this regionally, nationally, hyper locally, and see what skills are looking for. What you will find is you will find specific licenses. You will find specific certifications. You will find specific skills, software, hardware, and you will just look and say, okay, which of these shows up the most? Which one's the highest impact or most accessible for us to learn? And then how can my child learn this in a way that works for them, that doesn't require them to sit on a college campus for 4 years and learn from people who have never been in the job market. Go be strategic about this. And then what you'll find a lot of the times is that the key too, a lot of people don't know how much work it takes to apply. We're in this weird middle ground with all of the ATS and all these hiring systems, but something like 85% of all the jobs in our country are at companies with less than 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
So all these college graduates are competing. They're trying to compete at the Fortune 50 level, at Fortune 500, Fortune 50. They're trying to compete up here, which is why they're having such a hard time, because those jobs are, there's not as many of them, and they're trying to compete up here because they think. But then the other thing is, it takes so much pressure off your child if they're willing to take an entry-level job. Because a lot of college graduates are going to be competing for the exact same jobs as your child, but they can't take them because their debt is so high. And so your child just needs to find the right fit, get in the room with the right people, get the right experience, whether that's working at a local radio station and learning the ropes of like digital marketing in your community. That's going to open a ton of doors. If your child wants to do sports management, go get there was a young kid that came through the program. He wanted to get into turf management. We're like, okay, well, go work at the stadium. Go work at the Chief Stadium. That's what you need to do. Like start that. Like start getting your get your pest control certs, and then get in the room, dude. Like that's what you have to do. And college has made people believe that they can skip entry level work. They can't. They have to find entry level work, and they have to learn things. It's just how it is.
You know what and this has been a great conversation, Hannah. And again, Today's guest, Hannah from Degree Free. It's her and her husband, Ryan. And I've read the bio. He's got an interesting background too, career firefighter and accountant.
Yes.
Yeah, I read it like, wow, that's pretty all. You guys are all over. This is awesome. But as you describe this, and again, thanks so much for your time today. As you describe this, to me, you're describing something that has more hope to it. It's not this big daunting debt. It's not this whole, I hope I got the right degree. I hope I got the right college. But it's really practically looking at taking a jump past college. Look at the real goal, the career, location, environment, et cetera. And then how do you back into that? And how a great option really can be the entry-level position that so many people either turn their nose at or think it's not an option.
There is so much hope. There's so much hope. That is something I do want to get across to parents. There's and you can call, the other thing is the power of just calling people in your community and calling to follow up. Sure. It's amazing the doors that will open. People will bend over backwards for young people. They will. Yeah, and it's just something, it's the privilege of the young, it just is. And if you get them in the right place, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And also if you just reclaim that educational spend, right? Americans have the highest educational spend earmarked for their kids of any developed country. It's unbelievable the amount of money we have for our kids that we're going to spend after they graduate high school, and we're not spending it well. We're not spending it well. You can get them into full immersion language programs. You can get them into Formula One race engineering. We just had a young kid, Monlau. He's going to Barcelona. They have EU apprenticeships. They start younger in Europe as well.
Really?
But there's unbelievable, and it's cost less. It costs less than a degree. And so these unbelievable opportunities, if you reclaim and just go, you know what, we're going to start from scratch here. What do you need? What's cool? What can we do with the money that we have earmarked here? And if you have younger kids, I'm going to say something that's probably controversial to your audience, but I think people need to hear. Do not put your money in a 529 plan. Do not do it, because then you are stuck choosing from a college menu. There's 100 college majors at the largest universities. There are 867 jobs in the Bureau of Labor Statistics alone, occupations. There's closer, we estimate, to about 3,000, and there's new ones every single month because of the speed of technology. You're hooking your money into, while it's a good savings vehicle, if your child's going to go to college, now you've made it so that money is locked up and you can only roll over a little bit into a Roth, but they can't use it for educational spend because it's only able to be spent at a higher educational institution. And now they don't have access to that money to actually learn, to actually get skills that they need, to actually do things that they care about or love or enjoy. And the sooner people start either do half, put it somewhere else, but don't lock it up in there. I'm getting horror stories. I talked to a financial advisor who said that there was $3 million sitting in a 529 plan. She's like, nobody's going to touch it because the kids don't want to go. Kids don't want to go to college. And it can't help them either because it's locked up in a 529 plan.
Wow. Yeah. Hannah, just talking about the financial side of all this, the implications, the investment, where the money could be better spent, and also just the lifestyle, how the debt impacts society. Not getting married later, not having kids later, not buying homes. I mean, those are the crucial components to the economy, and it's being delayed and delayed and delayed because of the debt. Mm-hmm. Wow.
No one wants to talk about that part too. But the grandkids is very real. You're really taking your legacy into your hands if you send your kids to college and they do not have a clear goal. Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. Probably gonna have to pick your brain some more. I'll have to give you a side call.
I want people to take away is have these conversations with your kids about what they need. And I'm telling you, it just unlocks so much. It becomes so much easier to discern what's a good fit and what's not. And ultimately underneath it, Gen Z, I have a lot of hope for the future. I think we're going to be fine. I think they're going to do fine. I really do that. I really do think that. And parents can help make sure that this transition for them going into adulthood, that they are confident with the direction they're going forward and they're not burdened with debt, so they can make choices and changes confidently. And they're not going to be anxious about it, and they're going to be okay.
I love having the courage to say, let's not get burdened with debt just because it's college and it's something we think we have to do. So I thank you for saying that. I thank you for sharing your time and your expertise. How can people get in touch with you? I want to make sure they know that. Number one, how can they reach you?
Yeah, totally. So degreefree.com/launch if you want to look into the launch program, or just degreefree.com/podcast if you want to listen to our podcast. And then we also have a book that can help parents go through that initial process I described. And it's called The Degree Free Way: How to Help Your 16 to 20-year-old Build a Life They Want. Super useful, awesome. Very actionable. And there's a set. So it's a parent and a young adult to just kind of have those conversations I mentioned earlier.
Awesome. I love what you do. I love the message. I wish you continued success. Thanks so much for being on board the Profit Express today.
Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate it.
You got it. And this has been the Profit Express, and it's here each and every week, each and every Wednesday. And it's about you and I joining together, winning that battle for business. And listen, if you are that parent, like myself and my wife are with our son Magnus, who's 16, he's jumping into the whole college scene. Hannah Maruyama and Degree Free is a fantastic resource. It's not just a resource, but it's just a whole mindset and way of thinking as to, is the degree right for you? Is college right for you? But what about an entry-level position? I mean, I love that. I just love that. And how, her way of thinking and the resources that she offers gets not just the parents, but the student thinking as to what the possibilities are. And there's more than, it's not just college, there's more than one option, that's for sure. So again, until next time, this is the Profit Express.